Rich Lyons, CEO of Magento partner, Lyons Consulting Group, as well as Ken Bausch from Oneida. So without further ado, let these gentlemen take the stage.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So thanks for joining us today. We're excited to be here. I'm just waiting for our slide to come up. We have the enviable task of having you after lunch, so we'll try to keep it moving, right? Keep you awake, a lot of clapping and everything. So we're going to talk about best practices for launching an enterprise business on Magento. In terms of our agenda, we're going to give a little background on what is an enterprise business and a little background on Oneida that Ken's going to do. Talk about preparation. Preparation is very important before doing a launch. Picking the right partner. I'll be very unbiased when I talk about that part. Launch, and then results, the great results that were achieved. Future plans on Magento. Then we'll do a summary, and hopefully we'll keep it moving. We'll leave some time for Q&A. What is an enterprise business? So enterprise, an undertaking, especially one of some scope, complication, and risk. So I think everyone, whenever you're doing an e-commerce project, you're feeling that risk and complication. But specifically for enterprise business, we're talking about large revenue sites, high traffic volume, aggressive growth plans. And Ken will get into some of this and discuss this for Oneida specifically. Large integrations. We'll talk about that and the integrations that Oneida accomplished. Customizations, so being able to deal with customizations, multiple business units, and multiple sites. So that's how we're defining enterprise today in terms of the implementation. So I'll turn it over to Ken.
Great. So Oneida is a pretty old company, incorporated in 1880, and we're best known for flatware. Actually, at lunch today, we had our flatware that I stole a couple examples of, silver-plated flatware. And also in your room, if you have your in-room coffee with the Lavazza mugs, those are ours as well. And we originated as a utopian community. It's a very interesting history. Oneida was actually a religious cult. And people moved there from Vermont in the 1840s. And they did a variety of different manufacturing endeavors. And finally really got into flatware. And from that beginning, really, we're a very well-known brand today. We're the best-known tabletop brand in America. And actually number, I think, 23 now of all home products brands, ahead of a lot of our competitors like Calphalon, et cetera. And I didn't know about the video production that will be at the beginning of this, but we did a quick adaptation to do our own. And also wanted to say we're not in the swag store, but because everyone's kind enough to come here after lunch, what's mentioned at the end of this video, we would be happy to do for our studio audience as well, if you just give your contact information to Rich at the end.
You're showing us the next item.
Well, look, this is a fairly cheap bit of kit. You can get metal ones. This will break after 3 years.
I love bit of kit. It's a bit of kit.
A bit of kit.
Bit of kit, okay.
Sorry. What this does is you can take frumpy old root vegetables that don't particularly inspire you, and using a guard normally, you can turn it into beautiful, delicate sort of strips and sort of wonderful, look at that. And
this is why I don't cook, by the way.
If we can just have a close-up on that. I mean, basically, the whole point of this is that you can make frumpy things beautiful. You can make frumpy things delicate. And even the most ninja Japanese rude boys with their knives would struggle to get that accuracy every time.
And this is a mandolin?
A bit of kit can make you all brilliant. Okay. So this is good.
By the way, this is why I don't cook, because if my kitchen looked like this for 10 minutes, I'd have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah. This is why my wife cleans before the cleaner and after the cleaner. And then this bit of kit here, I think you call it a Y peeler. This is probably the cheapest bit of kit. You can get it for $3 or $4 or $5
We call it a
bucks.
carrot peeler.
A carrot peeler.
Yeah.
Again, you can peel carrots, absolutely. But again, you have the ability to do the same thing as the slicer. You can carry on peeling, and you get wonderful. So if what it allows you to do is you can do stuff for stir fries, salads. You can finish off, pasta dishes or risottos with delicate things. So they're my top tips, okay?
Yeah.
Should we clean up?
No, I'm fine. Got a whole group of people here with me today.
He's so not fine. He's like...
No, I'm totally fine. No, not type A. I'm okay. Totally fine.
It's like a pain, isn't it? When you see mess, it hurts you.
Yeah, it does. No, you don't have to clean. Okay. You've done enough. You've crossed the pond. All right, so everyone's going home with a $25 gift card from Oneida so that they can go and purchase their own time-saving kitchen gadget. Or bit of tips. You can have your own bit of tips.
You can tell he used to work for Oprah, right?
Sticking around to show us a few recipes from his brand new book, Jamie's America, that's going to help everybody up the ante at their next dinner party, so don't go away.
Thanks, Rick. So yeah, so definitely just give us your name. We'd be happy to send that to you. That'll be a real gift card if you want to spend $24, including the shipping. It's on us, and plenty of the huge studio audience did just that. So now on to e-commerce. So you can see the sign of Web 0.1 version that was our first website in 1996, sort of the blue with the attractive silverware. And then if we go on to the next one. Then over the next decade, we pretty much were just an informational site because we dealt with what all, I think, manufacturers who sell multi-channel do, or omni-channel, as Bernadine said this morning, channel conflict, where we were getting a real hard time from people for selling product directly. So we basically had an information site and weren't too serious about e-commerce. But then in May 2006, we significantly redesigned Oneida.com, and it was launched with full e-commerce functionality. And the site was an immediate hit. It was in the Internet Retailer Hot 100, and we won a whole bunch of BizRate Platinum Excellence Awards, et cetera. So that was circa 2006. And then we kept growing, which is a great problem to have. So by 2009, we had really very strong sales growth. And what was unusual, we all remember the recession and how difficult business was that year. We kept growing really at a high double-digit rate, and we were way ahead. We keep track of our competitors like Lifetime Brands, et cetera, way ahead of them and way ahead of the tabletop industry as a whole. So our revenue was passing the 8-figure mark. We had high traffic volume in the mid sort of 7 millions of people visiting our site annually. We had very aggressive growth plans, I guess because I had just joined the company and they wanted to give me an aggressive growth plan to double sales by 2012. And we had large integrations that would be required in a new e-commerce project. So during the life of this old site, we actually implemented SAP at our company and a new warehouse management system, and we intend to use the SAP CRM module as well. And we also have multiple business units, and I don't know how well you can see that on this slide, but in addition to consumer direct, we have our food service site, which is the folks in the chef's outfits. And then also, we've been around the world for many, many years, being such an old company. And we actually own a company in England called Viners of Sheffield. We're also going to launch on Magento shortly. So we were limited by our legacy platform. We were really happy with the company that got us live in 2006, but they were more of a boutique, sort of do everything for you shop. And we had really grown beyond that with a lot of new hires and people who had more e-commerce experience. So limitations became very clear in Q4 2009. The solution was highly customized. There was no standard version of the solution we were working with. And to maintain and modify it was always like a one-off project. So it was very difficult to meet the changing business needs that we had. A good example was adding PayPal took about, it was like a 4 to 6 week project with a lot of interfaces and a lot of stress and time consumption. And there were definitely performance issues. Now, in fairness to our vendor, we were on sort of the same old platform and our business was 10 times as great, but still, we had to do something. And we shared a database. Actually, there were 1 or 2 other little e-commerce sites on our shared platform, and they didn't have much fun when we were busy. So we went out shopping for a new platform. So we wanted the standard industry-leading e-commerce shopping and customer experience. And I think that's pretty much a given these days. Site management tools and the ability to optimize our business. An unusual thing that you may not all require is we also do customer service for the brand in total. So we needed a full contact center, call center functionality, which luckily Magento had or had just in time for our implementation. And then we had to integrate to SAP. And the ability to support both business-to-consumer and business-to-business transactions, because down the road, we are planning to sell more business-to-business. For example, perhaps the Hilton would order directly from us. And international capability. So that was really a core element. Again, our old vendor, very US-centric application, a lot of work to change that. So we wanted to find something that would work internationally. And lastly, and I think it was spoken about earlier today, one of our frustrations was if we wanted to customize with our internal resources, we couldn't do it on our old platform. And frankly, a lot of the other platforms that my team and I had worked with in the past, they tell you that you can do that, but you cannot necessarily do that. So you run into that. So then on to preparation. So we actually are a pretty good example because we looked at all the different vendors and all the different models. Should we buy the software and license it? Should we do a software as service model? Should it be a managed model, which is what we had today, or a full service vendor? And we reviewed multiple vendors, including our incumbent. And we came down to, well, obviously Magento, but then a hybrid solution from eCamera and Demandware, because we were very focused on our UK business. Hybris, which is a German software company, had a very neat solution. iCongo and Venda. So sort of in our mind, the best fit kind of from each category. Did we want to buy it? Did we want to host it, et cetera? But really, when we look closely at Magento, it was really pretty much unbeatable. The value, I mean, I was saying at lunch today, it's free. Well, it's not free because we were the enterprise edition, but it's virtually free compared to other licensing models and the revenue that you have to put in. Very flexible. Scalability that we'll talk more about later, that was the only question I had going in, and we've proven it's pretty scalable. The ability to personalize, and then a lot of complex promotion capability. And then our objectives, which I'll just whip through here, is just to create a comprehensive new Oneida.com to make lots of sales and keep the best of our existing site. But we also have to accommodate people who don't just buy things. That's one of the, when you're a manufacturer site, you have to accommodate people for other purposes. And we really wanted to consolidate all that customer relationship data. We didn't want a database of warranty customers and of web buyers and catalog buyers and so on. And everybody, again, we own the brand. We want to build the brand. It's our biggest asset. So after 130 years, we do want to put some cool stuff on the site to romance the consumer. And we want a lot of key branding elements. So there was a definite need for speed, and I have done this to Rich before, and we'll talk more about that later, but we had to have a new platform for Q4 because the transaction volume we were anticipating, we just could not have run. We would have been out of business on all of our busy days. And so we dedicated an internal team to our project.
And I think, in terms of best practices, I think that's a critical thing for people to consider. How many people are you dedicating to the project? So, Ken went out and hired a new director of e-commerce, and he really had a pretty large cross-functional team. Executive sponsorship obviously is critical as well to make sure the organization is behind the implementation. But look at the team that was involved in this implementation, from SAP subject matter experts to customer service. They had web designer, category merchant, manager of technology and infrastructure. So I think in terms of a best practice, when you take on a project like this, a lot of times we see not enough resources from the customer side. So to really dedicate that team is definitely a best practice, and especially when you have a time frame like we were under, to really be able to partner and work very closely with a vendor.
And then in terms of picking the right partner, and I think Rich is going to talk more about his firm and their capabilities, but I worked with another software service product, very popular one, when I was at Reader's Digest, and they selected Rich's firm to do the implementation. And it was a very complex implementation, again, going into a legacy catalog system. We had a pretty large business already, and as usual, our corporate parent delayed the contract signing until, I don't even remember, like June or something. And we had an absolute, we promised it, go live date of October 31st. And Rich's team met that. So that and the experience they had with the consumer brands was a big part of our selection.
And I think when you're making a determination and looking at a partner, in terms of, you need to consider all the factors in that implementation. Creative. Are you doing creative in-house? Do you have an agency? Or are you going to, rely upon your vendor? Development. Obviously, there's important development that's going to go on. Integrations, a lot of times people underestimate the amount of integrations that need to be done and the complexity of those integrations. It's easy to focus on creative and focus on how pretty it looks, but it's got to work. So you really need to focus on the technology and the integrations. Any customizations you're going to do, there are some complexities, here with, you have a single SKU that may be one spoon. You could order 4 spoons, you could order a whole set. So there is some complexity when you start looking at, how you're selling your product. Hosting, how are you going to host it? Are you hosting it internally? Are you hosting it externally? Who's going to support it? And then monitoring and support. It's not enough just to host it and say, okay, we went live. What's going to happen after you go live? What's going to happen when you have bumps in the night? Who's going to do your upgrades? Who's going to do all that? So when you're selecting a partner, you need to determine, take all of those things into consideration. And then Ken mentioned earlier, really the ability to scale. We'll talk a little bit about some of the funny stories after we launch, but really to be able to scale based on unknown traffic patterns. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, very
You know, so to not always know and not always be able to plan for those traffic patterns, but to have, you know, your hosting and your infrastructure able to scale on a dime, really, to be able to support that traffic. So I mean, this, you know, what we're talking about, what we call LCG commerce. So we basically take Magento, we host it, we support it, we customize it, and that's what we're doing for Oneida, and we really deliver it in a SaaS environment. So it's really supported by our experience. And then I think one thing that we also do is we just went through a quarterly review meeting. So we sit down with our customers, talk about how did the site do? How did your SEO do? How did your user experience do? So to really have someone invested, if you're not doing it internally, make sure you have someone really invested in your success and really trying to sell with you. And then, you know, we bring our best practices, and I think, you know, one thing that makes us different is, you know, we guarantee everything we do. You know, so if you're not happy, we're going to fix it, or we're going to give you your money back. So we're basically going to be that behind the scenes when something goes bump in the night, and you focus on selling, and you focus really on merchandising your product. So this, I'm not going to get into this, but this gets into, you know, really understanding, you know, full solution capabilities. So if you don't have these skills in-house, then you're going to need to make sure you have them somewhere, from really that user interface design and really doing the design to the technology, to site construction, how you're going to do a test plan, how you're going to do UAT, and then really your support. As I said, there's a lot of different support models, and we have a lot of customers that we do build and deploy for, that they support, or we're doing full support for them as well. And then, as I mentioned, design, you know, how are you going to handle design? We believe very firmly as a best practice in what we call user-centered design. You know, really focusing on the user. You know, so we worked with Ken and his team really looking at personas. You know, who's coming to the site? Who's buying? Because you do have people that already have a pattern, you know, who are coming to the site and just want to buy, like I did. You know, my kids, I think, throw them away. You know, so people are coming just to buy a few, to someone that's, you know, shopping to buy a whole new set, so a new user. So let that influence the architecture as a best practice. How does your navigation work? You know, we go through wireframes. We have a core set of wireframes. Make sure you understand the functionality in the wireframes before you then apply the visual design. So we did all this really before we applied the visual design. And then we went through a process with a number of different designs. You know, so a few different revisions. This was one of the early ones. Here's another one. You know, so a couple different revisions until we finally landed on the final design. So this is what the site looks like currently. And then applying that design into all the pages. So you have the product detail pages, and how are you going to apply that home page design to the rest of the pages in your site. And then I don't want to, you know, last but not least, right, well, everyone doesn't think about it, but really the project management and support. You know, project management's critical, so you need to have an internal project manager like Ken did. He hired a new e-commerce director who has done it before, who has been through implementations before, and then the product management on your partner side as well, to make sure that you are partnering together and everything is moving on track. And then we use different tools. You know, we use something we call TeamView, but really to have a system where you have complete visibility. You're not always on site. You know, you have people remote. You have people all over the world, as a matter of fact. So how are you going to make sure that there's full transparency? So we use this tool, and it's been very successful. And then after we go live, you have the same kind of thing. You need to have a system. We have an operations support center where we have a system for ticket tracking and everything. So it's just to be, if you're doing this internally, make sure you have all these systems set up and really taken care of. So then we launched.
Yep, so September 23rd, we launched the site, and this was the launch page with our 20% off new order coupon code. And things, you know, it was the usual launch, but things were pretty smooth, and things looked pretty good. And then, you know, let's see if I make it advance here. Yeah. So we were pretty aggressive. Our sales, for some reason, we had been up strong double digits all year, and then we kind of reached a plateau in early September, so we were very eager to get the new site out there, have a story, have things going. So as soon as we launched, we had an immediate increase in site traffic and conversion. Our bounce rate went down, and our goal conversions went up. So this all looked good, and the customer experience was a lot better. The thing we really worked on with the design was to make ours the best tabletop site. It's kind of difficult to sell flatware, strangely enough. And we really pride ourselves on being the best flatware site and the easiest to shop. And we had better content, images, the Ajax cart, etc. People spent a little bit less time on the site, but we could tell that was because they were finding what they wanted to do and buying things. And then it was very nice also, I had all my customer service now on Magento, so I could see everything. If the first time you were coming was because you were asking me to give you something for free for a warranty, or if you bought something before from us, etc. So that was very cool. And then the scalability was very good after we had a little initial bump that we'll talk about in a minute. But in the call center application, we processed more than 10,000 contact center orders in Q4, which is a lot. I mean, I'm sure some of you may have more than that, but a lot of order entry. No problem at all with the Magento application. The only thing we found out is we needed new PCs for the customer service folks because it was client-side was inadequate. And then after we got everything tuned, our performance would actually be a little faster when we got moderately to very busy, which was kind of cool, than just sort of baseline. And then this is just some of the instant reactions, actual quote from people. So my team inside has never been faster and more responsive. This is amazing and remarkable. This is why we put all that time and effort in. Our homepage image takes care of products, selling things, the brand. And then my favorite one that I edited out, but they actually did have a really good day. And then also from external customers, consultants, people that buy things from us, that they love the ordering process. And then our PR firm actually noted that when we went live, we maintained our #1 Google natural ranking and actually picked up several more mentions on the first page of Google, which they had never actually seen before with any of their clients when they went live on a new site. So that was really cool. And then because of this one little experience we had, I was using some site monitoring companies, and then this was the quote, "Didn't even break a sweat handling the load." And so that was from, so that was very good stuff. And so you'll talk a little about what.
Yeah, so just in terms of, so prior to that launch, there's some best practices that everyone should, obviously do. So user acceptance testing. We have some customers that do user acceptance testing with one person, and we highly recommend against that. Look at that, it's kind of mood lighting in here. We highly recommend against that. Really, to get the full team involved in UAT, have a dedicated team go through that and really do full testing. Don't give on this. You really need to do full user acceptance testing and really pound on the system from all departments. You don't want any surprises after you go live and someone goes, "Oh, I didn't really know about that." Similar with training. Make sure your teams are getting trained, whether you have kind of the champion and you're doing a train the trainer, or you're sending people to training, or you have your partner come on site, which we do a lot of training on site. Make sure that you do that training, that refresh. Obviously, training happens throughout the whole implementation, but make sure you get refreshed and everyone understands prior to launch. Production load testing. Obviously, make sure that you do a code review and production load testing before you go live. It seems obvious, but try to anticipate that maximum traffic volume, which we'll tell you a story where you don't always anticipate what the maximum is going to be. Have automated tools, really break your site so you really know where that point is. And then build the infrastructure accordingly, but always plan for scalability so you can scale. And then lastly is kind of that post-launch support. Make sure you have someone there with you and ready just in case something happens. When you turn that switch over and things start propagating, make sure your team and your support team is ready and waiting. We've got an operations support center that has processes and procedures, and everyone knew about that obviously before we went live. And then make sure you have someone around too that's going to do, whether you're going to do that internally or with someone else, how you're going to handle enhancements, and then how you're going to handle upgrades.
Okay, then things that are not recommended. So if your site just went live that week, and it's Friday, and you really want a spectacular season and a big number, you should not do a huge promotion on Slick Deals. We basically created our own denial of service attack on Rich's hosting platform.
2 days after launch.
Yeah, 2 days after launch, and we had innumerable visitors, so many that our site definitely crashed, but I mean, they told me it was like millions of people trying to get on the site. So, but once we got it up and running and functioning smoothly, at our peak, we had actually 2,500 people on our site simultaneously, which had never, ever happened before. That was 100 times more than we normally had. So it was pretty cool, and that was one of the nice things about working with Rich and his company.
Yeah, so it was really the bend that don't break. So we really bent. So performance was down. It was a very painful process, but we were able to scale up servers and really scale very quickly to get that performance up immediately. So we didn't have a catastrophe. So it was, as I was saying, if you're not planning and you're not ready for that, it's going to be very painful. So yes, it was a fun evening, and next day we're like, oh my gosh, but we were able to keep the site up and make it through the weekend.
Yeah, and I actually have sort of an unusual job. I'm like the consumer marketing person, but I also work for our CFO. So he doesn't like it when we're not making money. So he was kind of upset about this. And what was really nice about Lyons is that I could talk to them, and also that I could email the Magento team, and that the Magento team at the very highest level got back to us that weekend and was assisting Rich with the scaling process. So, I mean, I can't speak to all the vendors, but we didn't get that kind of help from IBM and SAP when we did that project. So that's kind of all I could say. And then PCI compliance, this is another critical thing for us. We're working with CyberSource, and this is important, I think, to all of us. And we did some very intrusive testing to get our PCI compliance this year, and no problem at all with the application. Okay, so the results. We really had just this incredible explosion of traffic and sales, and I can't say it's all the site, but it was really, we were kind of lagging mid-September. Then the site went live. Maybe we were more excited. I don't know what it all was, but we had a tremendous number of people, record site traffic. Our overall site conversion rate went up, which is really cool. But as Bernadine was talking about earlier, you got to look at your metrics carefully. Our average order value for the kind of people we've been bringing in before was actually higher, our fine flatware buyer. Now, obviously, if we brought in totally new people to buy cookware, the average order value was lower, but that was all incremental business, so it worked out very well. So we used customer groups. We used a lot of complex discounting. We are the kings of kits and product bundles, and it took Rich's group a long time to do that, because as Rich said, this can be sold on its own as a set of 4 in many, many ways. And then we did personalize our marketing messages. If you own, say, Michelangelo flatware, we land you on a context-relevant page. Also improved execution. We're basically using Magento to look at our key metrics and status as a team. And then one of the nice things for us as well, because in our old system was kind of a black box, we kind of do all our sales, submit the credit card stuff. Everyone said, yeah, the batch file process life is good. Well, it didn't always process. We actually had significant frictional loss with credit cards, and now we've essentially eliminated that because we can look at that in real time and make sure we actually got approval and got paid for everything that we shipped to people, which is pretty cool. And our future plans on Magento, and if I wasn't here, I'd probably be working on this right now, but someone talked about 51 Commerce earlier today. We looked all around. We use a vendor now that just sends to Canada, but the people who started that company actually are the owners of 51 Commerce, so it's a great product. And shortly, Rich's group will have the implementation of Magento Enterprise, and we're looking forward to launching this month. Oneida UK, we're going to launch probably in Q2. So we'll have both Viners and oneida.co.uk. The food service site we'll probably do at the end of this year. Additional categories, jewelry is a little bit different, so we're going to have a little bit different looking page for that, and child and baby gifts. And then one of the great things about our sort of subscription model is we're going to be, we launched on 1.8, so we'll be on 1.9 and 1.10. And these are things that may already be in there, but we're going to make use of the new enhancements, definitely reward points, and then the gift certificates. So when you guys leave us your information and we send these to you, we'll have kind of a low-tech version. But next year, we'll have a much higher-tech version, print on little plastic cards, et cetera. And then delivering brand-enhancing content. This is our homepage today with our Vivanti flatware. The obligatory social media integration, but we're actually doing it. It seems to be working well for us. 2 other things we've had on our site forever is Power Reviews, which we integrated Magento with, and it's worked very well. And then we use Exact Target for email, so we've been happy with that. We were inspired by the Slick Deals thing to maybe do a flash sale site, so that's a possibility for the future. And then we're definitely using the continuity program and the recurring payments module, because that's a key part of our business. We used to have a huge business with General Mills, and we had a huge one on our own that was classic, like Better Homes and Gardens. People buy their flatware. When they buy 8 sets, we send them a chest and so on. So it's worked out pretty well. And then gift and bridal registry. Now this will be very complex and delicate because we don't really want to steal sales from our partners.
Right.
So if we do this, it would have to actually work with Macy's or Belk or whomever. And assisted selling. So to kind of sum it up, I mean, to me, like the core of this, if you get one thing out of this today, is that we kind of had a blank check, which is pretty cool, because in our company, we're a fast-growing part. Our management, the company that, the venture capitalists, frankly, that own our company, we're very open to our investing whatever we wanted in this platform as long as we got a good return on it. But we really, really liked Magento. So we looked around, we said, this is much better than 5 years ago. There's a lot of great choices, but they're different business models. So it is a great time to select. But when you have stuff you need to work with, like SAP, et cetera, you do have to worry about integration. And then also to us, you know, and this is working with Rich's company and also what I've seen in Magento so far, you're also choosing people and a culture as much or more than the technology, which is going to change over time. So who's the software vendor? Who's your implementation partner? Will you get ongoing support? I mean, that's one of the nice things, you know, working with Rich's company is he gives me the same support now as when we were going live. And everyone, the vendor, ourselves, Lyons, et cetera, we have to want to constantly improve because as someone pointed out earlier today, the bar is constantly being raised in our business, so we have to keep competing. And the new platform, it definitely transformed our business. So we were doing a pretty good job of acquisition, conversion, and retention before, but this has really taken us to the next level. I reorganized my group really kind of around Magento work roles, to be honest with you. So that's been great, and we just rolled that out this month. It's a much more customer-centric platform than our old one. And then we are, as we said, using personalization. So that's.
So we actually left some time. I think we left 5 minutes or so for a question if people have questions.
So definitely have some time for questions. And definitely appreciate as well the insight, key considerations, and best practices based on you guys' experience. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.